Today on Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond.
And so what I'm doing is I'm taking everything that I've ever done based on practice, not just, listening to some clown say this is how it works. I'm actually going through the practice of being an entrepreneur.
You don't need to play it safe.
This was spectacular.
And I'm going to be really honest, so I hope you don't mind.
Yeah, that's what we want.
And there will be bumps in the road. There will be twists and turns.
You needed moxie on the floor and volume.
It's the results and the connections and the improvement, the impact we have on other people's life. And that's when life becomes exciting.
Who do you turn to personally to get back on the thriving track?
I was really interested in how the world works.
Thanks for the great introduction.
It was really very simple. I just read part of your bio. Be brief, be bright, be gone.
Get ready to thrive loud with Lou Diamond.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond, connecting you to the most inspiring and amazing people that are thriving each and every day. Today on Thrive Loud, I bring you a man that grew up on the streets of New Jersey and literally started working for survival in the first grade. He uses his lessons of survival and skills, which he learned while in the Navy, now as a CEO and a motivator. He's got an unbelievable story, a great book that's out, has been an unbelievable success to leaders around the country. He's with us here today. Paul Szyarto, welcome to Thrive Loud.
Great, Lou. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so this is really cool because I get introduced to lots of different people, but not people who literally have been started and have a timeline on their websites that literally says what they've been doing since they were 5 years old. So Paul, if you could share with the Thrive Loud community a little of your journey so they can be brought up to speed, and we'll ask questions accordingly. Sound like a plan?
Sounds like a plan. I think
Awesome.
I think the website only has a fraction of what I've done. So, so I've been a serial entrepreneur, let's call it, since I was a young boy. And it was, my motivation was, unlike most people to where it was focused on focus on wants, mine was a focus on needs. So I did pretty much everything. I mean, it's, when I was a kid, I found ways to make money to help with, pretty much paying bills, buying clothes, feeding myself. Don't get me wrong. My mom did a great job. She busted her butt, but I come from a pretty tough background where my dad was he was an alcoholic, and, pretty abusive. So we were always pretty much running from that, that craziness. So, and I found that, as a little kid, you don't grow up with all the things you want, like toys. And I found myself figuring out ways to barter for toys. I wanted certain things at lunchtime, maybe, to where I would essentially draw on pencils. I had one to where in middle school to where I needed to, I wanted to have cool clothes. So we couldn't afford the certain clothes. So I started selling candy in school. And it was, it got to the point where it became a little business to where I was making a few $100 a week. And, I was dubbed the Candy Man from like 7th grade until 10th grade. And although it sounds dorky, I guess I was making money. And then, and that progressed from candy to radio, cars. And, then my naval journey began at the ripe age of 17. And
now what did you go into? You just like enlisted, or what division of the Navy?
Well, it's actually a pretty interesting story. So when I was younger, I was into everything. And let's say I was helping a guy protect himself, and I was in a situation to where someone pulled a weapon out on this guy. I said, put the weapon away. He didn't want to listen. So he tried to hit me with a weapon. So I hit him with my hand. And next thing I know, I was in front of a judge, and, I had issues. So, it's all self-defense. It is what it is. But that's pretty much when I was more or less directed to go into the military. And, I was at the point of about to sign with the U.S. Marines, and my uncle called and said, you need to chat with the Navy. And I told the Marines, I said, hey, I'm going to chat with the Navy. And the next day I went over to the Navy and they signed me up. And, I went from being like trying to be a tough guy, badass in the Marine Corps to being a nuclear engineer in the Navy because I had really high aptitude scores. And, so it was like such a, vast, drastic difference to where, one day you're trying to target to be an infantry guy, a tough guy. And the next day you're joining the Navy to be this nuclear engineer, nuke ET. And, I was pretty much off. Like I turned 18 in June and I was off in September.
So you go into the Navy and carry us on the rest of the story from there.
So I'm in the Navy, and I will say that I wasn't the guy who would sit in class and study and do homework. I kind of, I figured my way around school and just, got by. But in the Navy, it's you pretty much, you didn't have a choice. You were there to bust your ass, and you were there to work your butt off. And I didn't go for a 10-week boot camp. I went to a 13-week boot camp. I was in what's called the first integrated division, to where it was actually men and women, and it was tough. It was I was on a drill team in the boot camp, and 13 weeks later, I finished that, and they sent me off to what was called Tech Corps, and Tech Corps was I was an 18-year-old guy in front of a multi-million-dollar piece of equipment, and they were trying to teach me how to troubleshoot this satellite communication system. And I was just, I didn't know what to do. I was just, one, shocked that I was there. Two, I had no study skills. I didn't have the ability to figure it out. And, it just came down to making a choice of, hey, I'm either going to do this or I'm going to wind up as they call them deck apes, where you just sit on the deck and, I guess you mop the deck. And I made a choice, started studying, and I went through Tech Corps. I did a really good job, graduated ahead of my class. And from there, Navy sent me to, I was out in Texas leading a work center for, this weather observation systems and precision approach radars. And from there, I did really well in Corpus Christi, Texas. And they sent me out to what's called a NICTAMS, which is a Naval Command Area Master Station, to work on fleet operations for the Mediterranean fleet and to, do some terrorist tracking and stuff like that. So, yeah, it was wild. So I lived in Italy for, 2.5 years, and my naval career was about 6 years, and then I did 2 years inactive. So by the time I was 23, I've accomplished more than most. I did my naval career. I did 2 bachelor degrees, and I did a master's degree in addition to my naval time.
So here you are, you literally fighting in the streets, go through the Navy, and you now finish your tour of duty at still a pretty young age. What did you
23, yeah.
Yeah. So, what did you want to do?
Honestly, when I was in the Navy, it's like I saw the opportunity, of working with your hands versus working with your head, and I kind of summarize that. It doesn't pay to work, as hard as you possibly can to make a buck. Try to do big things, try to do smart things, and try to replicate what you know and how you do it. Build teams, great teams to accomplish really amazing things. And that's what my target was. I wanted to get into the Navy, do my military duty. And whenever I had free time, I went to school. And like I said, I came out with a master's degree, an MBA, and I said, I'm going to get out. I'm going to start running my own companies, and I want to see where it goes. And pretty much the day I walked out of the Navy, I started working with First Tennessee Bank as a mortgage broker, because one of my goals was to identify how the financial domain worked when it came to purchasing and flipping real estate. So I said, hey, let's go to the source. The source is the finance. So let me learn that. And, I became, I'm not trying to pat my own back, but they called me the prodigy because I figured out a way to, code some, write some code to generate leads. And then I was making more than the top brokers within the agency, and they're like, holy crap, who is this guy? So I just saw that as an opportunity of, wow, I could, you could make money with your head, and you could write some code, you could do this. And then, that's where the whole idea of, creating companies and starting to flip businesses and to get into bigger and bigger and bigger organizations. So that was pretty much my first area. I kind of wrote some apps to identify leads for the mortgage business.
Great.
And I released that, and then I went to the next thing, and then the next thing, and then the next thing. So so there it brings me to today, where I've built all of these different assets. Some have been very, very successful. Some have been complete failures. But the fact is, I just kept trying. So until something worked.
Hey there! If you're enjoying how Lou is connecting with this guest in this interview, then just imagine how impactful he can be in person. As an international speaker and consultant, Lou Diamond is all about getting organizations to thrive through the power of connecting. To learn more about how you can hire Lou to speak at your company, your conference, or your next event, head on over to loudiamond.net and click the Book Lou button to learn more. He'll truly get everyone to thrive loud. All right, let's get back to the show.
So this is a question I've had for a lot of great entrepreneurs like yourself, and specifically one like you who's come from such a unique background and had to do a lot of things by yourself. And whether it's taking on the skills to learn, putting in the hard day's work and then some. So after you've done that, and now you're trying to help others do that, right? Because you're at this stage here. What kind of messages, how do you deploy this hardworking attitude that you have so that others can understand and learn from it? I've always wanted to connect that dot, how you can actually take something that has been literally ingrained from you from a very long time to be able to help others to do the same.
So this is where I have a book being released, and the original title of the book was Never Broken, meaning never broken psychologically or financially. And, after going through with the publisher and stuff, the idea is going to be to convert that to no bullshit, just results. And the idea is to where there are so many people out there, to where they claim to be these highly successful entrepreneurs or business people, and they project so much fluffy BS regarding how to build business, the mindset around it, how to, to negotiate, how to sell. And so what I'm doing is I'm actually tired of hearing it. And so what I'm doing is I'm taking everything that I've ever done based on practice, not just, listening to some clown say this is how it works. I'm actually going through the practice of being an entrepreneur. And I've kind of documented all this, the different, techniques that I've used. And so that's coming out soon. It's going to be packaged, and everyone will get to read about how I did it. But I will say probably the foundation of all great entrepreneurs, because really the great ones aren't out there selling themselves. They're out there making money, and they're building operations, and they're really affecting lives. They're not selling the 64-step get rich quick scheme. And that's what I want to do. I want to kind of give people the insight on what's bullshit versus what's real. And I say the foundation of every great entrepreneur is being a survivorpreneur before anything. Yeah. Just
hit something that is so vital for everybody. Everybody who listens to Thrive Loud knows. You can hear all these different bits. Like sometimes we get too much data. We can drown in it, right? Too many different ideas of how to look at this or how to handle this. But to your point, this survive entrepreneur combination word is so brilliant, because look, that's what it is. You're basically figuring out what you need to do to survive and do the best that you can, and to be able to be selective with that and do what helps you the most and find that path for yourself. And I think that's a huge summary. I'm just laughing because I can imagine you probably wrote the title of the book, No Bullshit, Just Results, first, and then said, well, maybe I need to be more PC, and then put it back the other way. Was that the case?
Well, yeah. I mean, originally it was more of a kind of, I went through like this memoir that went through these business business tactics, these entrepreneurial tactics. And I sat back and I said, you know something, screw this, who cares about me? I don't really give a shit about my life, how I've succeeded. Let me just give perspective on how to succeed. And let me throw some stories in, regarding the steps that you should be taking, because you said it right. I mean, there's so many people, there's so much information, there's so many people trying to figure out what to do, and there's just so much BS out there.
Yeah, and I think it's important that what you recognize, and as the listener, I say the listener needs to understand that when you're faced with a challenge, no one else is going to tell you exactly the right path to do it. You have to take all those different pieces of information, put it together, and figure out what works best, and act on it.
Yeah.
And I think that's that's what great survivors do. And I think that's really good. I'm laughing, Thrive Out listeners, because he has a very, very colorful website. And I always like coming up and down with different topics when I'm speaking with somebody. And I'm just laughing at he's got Success Architect, which is just a great thing, but the never broken and all this stuff. And then he's got these pictures of him like in a business suit punching and in like fatigues punching. So I do want to say, are you still sort of active in a lot of the physical stuff that you do each and every day?
So just understand the fatigues and stuff like that. So in addition to being a master in the boardroom, I'm also a martial artist. So I've been doing martial arts for a really long time, and I have a passion for what's called Krav Maga, which is a Israeli combative system. So I've trained with the best fighters in the world, and I would say I have direct lineage with the founders of Krav Maga, which is it was originated in Israel, and there's only a few people that know or have that direct lineage with the people that founded it. So I go out to Israel, all the time. I'm out there training with people. I'm out here in the States working with teams to do like hardcore combatives. And so what the hell does that have to do with business or being an entrepreneur? It comes down to that survivor mindset, because most people think that it's all about, entrepreneurship is about, what are you doing, how to work smarter, not harder, blah, blah, blah. So my philosophy is that there's this kind of like, I kind of call it the bubble theory, to where it's like, we're all kind of like these fragile bubbles that are being impacted from these external variables. Okay. And then you have these internal variables that are constantly, you constantly have to develop them. You constantly have to use them as shields and to keep them in, keep them synchronized and harmonized to kind of give you the power to deal with what's happening on the outside. And one of them is that the body, not just the mind, but the body. And for me, martial arts it's not about this Zen thing and doing this kata and doing, this like these rituals. It's about, if you've ever been in a fight, all right, it's kind of, it's a shock to the mind and the body, it's like when someone's trying to hurt you, most people, they do one of three, they do a kind of a 3-step process. They typically freeze, they piss themselves, and then they get hurt, so, me on the other hand, I have a philosophy of, when someone's trying to hurt me, you should be fully aware of your environment, and you should be proactive. You should be always planning on what you can do when that attack happens. So, same thing in business. If you're sitting here and you're trying to be, you're trying to dominate in a competitive landscape, it's not about being reactive. It's about being highly proactive and, doing the research that you should be doing to understand your competition, your essentially your attackers, because they are there to take your life, to take your money. They do not want you to survive. The more you survive, the less they survive. So it's kind of that same like, mixed martial arts, Krav Maga mentality, to where, I am here to succeed. I'm not going to let you take what I've built. I'm going to do whatever it takes to ensure I survive and I win. Okay. So
note to self, don't start fight with Paul. Okay. I had to put that down in my notes as I take this here.
Nice.
Thank you for sharing. And that's the right attitude and the mindset to have. And that's what being, a warrior in business is all about.
Yeah.
Paul, I love asking this question. I'm curious to see where it goes. We all have off days. We have days where we're not peaking and we're not at truly our best. What practice do you seek, or what individual do you go to when you're not on the thriving track to help you get back on the thriving track?
I actually go to my wife and my kids.
Okay.
So it's, I believe, everybody's pretty much a mentor. You're here to learn from everyone. And the thing is, I have, a philosophy of people that I work with and people that work for me. People that work for me, I don't ask them for advice on how to get back on track. People I work with are people at my level or above. Of course, I see them as my own counsel of, what I should be or could be, or am doing within business. But for me, at least, my zen, and to ensure I'm, at that, homeostasis point, I turn to my wife, she's got that whole logic side, the emotional side, and I look at my kids on, how much am I working? Should I be working more? Should I be working less? And I kind of they help me reset to where when things are tough, and you sit back and you wonder what the hell you're fighting for or why you're driving so hard. I can look to them as the answer of, okay, that's why I'm here. That's why I'm pushing so hard. So they have it a lot easier than I did.
Great stuff, man. Beautifully put. Let's we're right at the beginning of 2019 as this episode is airing, and Paul, I'm very curious to hear what's your specific business goal for you or in your company this year. Anything you're looking forward to achieving, or something that you're working on specifically?
Yeah, I'm actually working on a lot of things. So one, we kicked off a new company called Datapella, which is focusing on, so I've been in the realm of big data and cybersecurity for some time. I'm the faculty chair for the big data program at Rutgers University. And what I'm doing now is, I see all of these organizations that are being essentially challenged and disrupted by the digital revolution. And so I've come up with some playbooks or tactics and strategies to minimize that digital disruption for, many different verticals within the market. So that's one focus. We're going to be bringing that to market. We're going to be doing some assessments, building some roadmaps on how to essentially deal with that digital disruption. I have another domain around the whole Krav Maga. So I partnered with an individual from Israel, and we're going to be bringing his organization here to the States starting in January. And in addition to that, I had my own franchise of martial arts facilities, but I'm kind of converting things to pretty much go down the Krav Maga route. So I become partners with that organization. We're doing that. And, my personal goal is to really get into a lot more public speaking, a lot more mentorship. I have a site called Mentobo coming up to do a lot of that stuff. So
it's great stuff. By the way, I have a connection with, there's a program that we run here in New York called Tzahal Shalom, where we bring in soldiers from the Israeli army every year. And a couple of them specialize in this area. I've witnessed some of it ending up on the flat of my back, which is why I wrote down the notes. Do not fight with Paul. Okay.
Nice.
Or take a class, actually, is what I should be doing is get up on my Krav Maga, which would be pretty cool
wherever
stuff.
you're located, I can come out there. I can show you some things.
I think we have a franchise in the Northern Westchester area. So, okay. So with that, let's do the admin stuff here. If you could, Paul, share with the listeners all the places people can find you, websites, links, upcoming things for you on the calendar, and this is your chance to plug.
Great. So you could reach me, Paul Szyarto, at of course, www.paulszyarto, that's PAULSZYARTO.com. That's kind of my general site, and it goes through, things I've done, what I'm doing, where I'm speaking. There's also boardroomwarriors.org. That's kind of on the combative side, to where we're actually teaching executives on how to apply some of the combative mindset within the boardroom. And then the new organization that's about to come out called Datapella, datapella.com, datapella.com. That's regarding big data, business transformation. I also teach at Wharton Business School. I teach at Rutgers. You can always go to the sites there to find out what I'm doing, or just Google me. So there's plenty of information out there regarding what I do.
Paul Szyarto, he's everywhere. You've got everything going on. I love it. And it's running 100 miles an hour, which is what Thrive Loud is all about. Paul, if you could, because I know you were really worried about this early on, your all-time favorite movie.
My all-time favorite movie is Rocky. So, and I'll give you the reason why. Every time I watch Rocky, I have so my dad, when he wasn't in his, being a bad guy, he would sit down and we would watch Rocky. And that was one thing that brings up, some things I enjoyed when I was a kid. Plus, the watching the movie and seeing a guy who came from nothing on the streets of Philly, who just fought his way to the top. And it really resonates with me to where, I came from where he came from, and like him, I'm not going to stop until I win.
Going to end on that note, Paul. This was awesome. Thank you so much for coming on Thrive Loud today.
Great. Thanks so much, Lou.
And to all our listeners out there, thank you for joining us. And until next time, keep thriving onward and upward. And remember, be brief, be bright, be gone.
You've been listening to Thrive Loud with your host, Lou Diamond. Make sure to subscribe on iTunes, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. And follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Thrive Loud. Or find us on the web at thriveloud.com.